The kitchen linoleum was colder than Martin Porter expected, and the copper taste in his mouth was his own blood. He lay there, cheek pressed flat against the floor, listening to his daughter's bare feet walk away. The slap of skin on tile, the creak of the third stair, her bedroom door slamming shut overhead, hard enough to rattle the light fixture above him. The oscillating fan in the corner ticked, metal on metal, counting seconds he couldn't quite organize into thought. Martin was 68 years old. He'd worked 43 years at the rail yard, buried his wife 12 years back, and raised one daughter who just shoved him to the ground like he was a piece of furniture. In her way. His lip throbbed. He touched it with his tongue, split on the inside where his teeth had caught it. The blood was warm, then cold as air hit it. He didn't move. Not because he couldn't, but because his brain hadn't caught up to his body yet. The thing that had just happened, Danielle's hand connecting with his face, her other hand shoving his chest, his feet tangling, the floor rising up fast, none of it fit into the category of things that happen in real life. But it had happened. Through the window above the sink, a foghorn sounded low and long from the Savannah River. September night, pressing humid against the screens. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked twice and quit. Martin pushed himself up to sitting. His left arm screamed. He looked down and saw the marks already forming. 4 purple ovals on his bicep where her fingers had dug in. 1 thumbprint on the underside. Like she'd tried to tear his arm off before settling for his face. He used the counter edge to pull himself up. His knees didn't want to lock, but he made them. Stood there, swaying slightly, staring at the empty doorway where his daughter had been 30 seconds ago. The kitchen clock said 11:43 p.m. He turned on the faucet, let it run cold, pulled a dish towel from the drawer, soaked it, pressed it to his mouth. The white fabric bloomed pink. He wrung it out, pressed again. His hands were shaking. On the windowsill above the sink, his late wife's reading glasses sat where they'd been for 12 years, waiting for hands that would never pick them up again. Dust on the frames. One arm slightly bent where Claire had always laid them down crooked. Martin stared at them, thought she wouldn't recognize the woman upstairs. His lip had stopped bleeding, mostly. He rinsed the towel, wrung it out, hung it over the faucet to dry. The motion was automatic. Clean up, put things back, pretend the house wasn't falling apart from the inside. He heard music start upstairs. Country radio, turned up loud. Danielle's way of saying she didn't care, that she'd gone to bed, that what happened downstairs didn't matter. Through the kitchen window, a light flicked on next door. Evelyn Brooks's bedroom, 2nd floor, facing his house. He saw her shape move past the window, pause, look toward him. Martin turned off the kitchen light, stood in darkness. The only sound, the fan ticking and the hum of the refrigerator and Danielle's music bleeding through the ceiling. His mouth tasted like metal and salt. He walked to the back door, pushed the screen open, stepped onto the porch. The air was thick enough to choke on. Georgia in September, heat that didn't break even at midnight. Crickets screaming in the overgrown azaleas his wife used to trim. The porch swing creaked in the breeze. For half a second his heart jumped. Someone's there. But it was just wind pushing the empty chains. Martin sat on the top step, elbows on knees, and pressed his palms against his eyes. Upstairs the music got louder. A door opened, Danielle's footsteps crossing her room. Then silence, like she was listening, testing whether he'd come up, whether he'd knock on her door and apologize for making her angry. He'd done that before. Too many times. Said I'm sorry when he hadn't done anything wrong, just to stop her from slamming things, to keep the peace. To avoid this exact feeling, sitting alone in the dark while his own child treated him like an obstacle instead of a person. The music cranked up again, defiant, daring him. Martin stood, brushed off his pants, went back inside, locked the back door, checked the front, turned off all the lights except the one in the hallway. The nightlight they'd kept burning since Danielle was small and afraid of shadows. He climbed the stairs slowly, each step an announcement. His bedroom door was opposite hers, 10 feet of carpet between them that felt like a minefield. Her music vibrated the wall, bassline thumping. A man's voice singing about trucks and freedom and leaving town. Martin closed his door, locked it for the first time in his life, and sat on the edge of the bed. His hands were still shaking. He pulled his old flip phone from the nightstand drawer, opened it, stared at the tiny screen. Thought about calling someone, his sister, the police. But what would he say? My daughter hit me, and I don't know what to do about it. Upstairs, Danielle's music started, loud, defiant, and Martin realized with cold certainty that she was testing him, waiting to see if he'd come up and apologize for making her angry. Sunlight had no right to be that cheerful in a house where blood had been spilled the night before. Martin woke at 5:30, same as always, after maybe 2 hours of sleep. His mouth was stiff where the cut had scabbed. His left arm throbbed when he moved it. He sat up, feet on the floor, and listened. The house was quiet. Danielle's door was still closed. In the bathroom, he turned on the light and looked at himself in the mirror. The bruise on his jaw was coming in yellow-green at the edges, purple in the center. His lower lip was swollen, split visible when he pulled it down. Not bad enough for stitches. Bad enough that anyone who looked at him would ask questions. He pulled up his shirt sleeve. The finger marks on his arm were darker now. 4 distinct ovals, 1 thumbprint, like she'd branded him. Martin retrieved his flip phone from the bedroom, came back to the bathroom, and closed the door. Positioned himself in front of the mirror, held the phone at arm's length, pressed the button. The flash went off, too bright, and he blinked. Checked the screen, blurry. He tried again, steadier this time. 3 photos of his face from different angles. Then he pulled up his sleeve and photographed his arm. The purple mark stood out clear against his pale skin. His hands shook the whole time. He went back to his bedroom, sat at the small desk by the window, and pulled out the pocket notebook he kept for hardware store lists. Turned to a blank page. Wrote in his careful block letters, September 17th, 11:40 p.m. kitchen, push to floor. Face struck. Open hand. Bruises on left arm from grab. Said, "You don't tell me what to do anymore, old man." He stared at the words. They looked small on the page. Didn't match the size of what they described. He closed the notebook, put it in the desk drawer under some old mail, and went downstairs. The coffee percolator bubbled on the stove, filling the kitchen with a smell that almost felt normal. Martin poured a cup, black, and stood at the window looking out at Evelyn Brooks' house next door. Her kitchen light was on. He could see her moving around, probably making her own coffee. 62 years they'd been neighbors. Longer than Martin had been alive. Evelyn used to bring over casseroles after Claire died, sit with him on the porch without talking much. Good woman, retired judge, didn't miss much. He heard footsteps on his porch, the particular creak of the third board, and then a knock. Martin opened the door before she could knock twice. Evelyn stood there in her bathrobe, coffee mug in both hands, looking at his face. She didn't say anything for 3 long seconds, just looked. Then, "I heard the crash last night. Through my window." Martin nodded. "You want to tell me what happened?" Evelyn said. "Or you want me to pretend I didn't see your light on at 2 in the morning?" Martin stepped back, held the door open. She came in, set her mug on the kitchen table, and waited. He showed her his arm. Pulled up the sleeve, turned it so she could see the marks. Her face went hard, the judge in her surfacing. "Who did this?" "My daughter." Evelyn's eyes flicked to the ceiling, Danielle's room, then back to Martin. She pulled out a chair, sat down. The chair legs scraped loud against the floor. "What are you gonna do?" Martin sat across from her. "I don't know yet, but I took pictures." Evelyn met his eyes, held them. "Good. Don't delete them. And if you need me to see anything or hear anything, you call me. I mean that. I know. Martin." She leaned forward. "This isn't a one-time thing, is it?" He looked down at his coffee. "No." "How long?" 2 years, since she moved back in. It's been getting worse." "She ever hit you before?" "No, but she's—" He stopped. Didn't know how to finish that sentence. "She's what?" "Mean," Martin said quietly. "She's gotten mean." Evelyn's jaw tightened. She picked up her mug, took a sip, set it down. "I spent 30 years on the family court bench. You know what I learned? People who hurt their parents don't stop on their own. They stop when someone makes them." Martin didn't answer. "You thinking about calling the police?" "I'm thinking about a lot of things." Evelyn stood, went to the sink, rinsed her mug, set it in the dish drainer, turned back to him. "Whatever you decide, I'm here. You understand? You're not alone in this." "Thank you." She left through the back door, the screen slapping shut behind her. Martin sat at the table with his coffee going cold, staring at nothing. At 6:30, he picked up the landline phone, the old rotary-style one Claire had insisted on keeping, and dialed a number. He knew by heart. 3 rings, then Turner. "Sam, it's Martin Porter." "Martin. Little early, isn't it?" Detective Samuel Turner's voice was friendly, half awake. "Everything okay?" "No. I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen, as a cop, not just a friend." Silence on the other end. Then Turner's voice changed, sharper, professional. "Go ahead." Martin told him. Kept his voice flat, factual. Laid out the timeline, like evidence. The argument, the shove, the slap, the bruises, the photos. When he finished, Turner was quiet for a long moment. "You documented it," Turner finally said. "Not a question." "Photos, written account." "Jesus, Martin." Turner exhaled hard. "I'll be there tomorrow. Don't let her know I'm coming." "All right." "And, Martin, don't erase those photos. Don't throw away that notebook. You hear me?" "I hear you. I mean it. This is evidence now." Martin hung up. His hands were steadier than they'd been in the bathroom. One more call. He dialed his sister in Charleston. It rang 4 times before she picked up, breathless. "Hello?" "Trisha." "It's Martin." "Martin, what's wrong? It's not even 7. Danielle hit me last night." Silence. Trisha. What did you say to her? Patricia's voice had gone tight, defensive. Martin closed his eyes. I told her she needed to find her own place. She's 34. Well, I'm sure she didn't mean, you know how she gets when she's stressed. She meant it. I have bruises shaped like her hand on my arm. More silence. Longer this time. Trisha, I need you to come up here. Day after tomorrow, 8 in the morning. Why? What are you going to do? I'm going to talk to her, and I need you there. Martin, I don't think... Please. His voice cracked on the word. He cleared his throat. I need you. Patricia made a small sound, maybe a sob, maybe just breath. Okay, I'll be there. Thank you. He hung up before she could change her mind. The pipes groaned upstairs, water running. Danielle was awake. Martin stood at the kitchen sink, hands braced on the counter, looking at Claire's glasses on the windowsill. 12 years of dust. 12 years of pretending everything was fine. He heard the shower shut off. Heard Danielle moving around her room, drawers opening, closet door sliding. She'd be down soon. Martin poured himself another cup of coffee, sat at the table with the newspaper spread in front of him, and waited. He heard the bathroom pipes groan upstairs as Danielle turned on the shower, and he realized she was about to come downstairs and pretend nothing had happened, which meant he'd have to decide right now whether to pretend along with her. Danielle came downstairs at 9 o'clock with wet hair and a smile, and Martin understood for the first time that he'd been living with a stranger. She was dressed in clean clothes, jeans, a loose sweater, moving carefully like someone trying not to jostle a hangover. Her feet were bare on the stairs, same feet that had walked away from him on the kitchen floor last night. Martin sat at the table with his coffee and the newspaper spread out. He hadn't read a single word, just stared at the print until it blurred. Morning, Daddy. Her voice was bright, cheerful even. He looked up. She was already at the stove, pulling out the skillet, opening the refrigerator, acting like this was any other Tuesday morning. Sleep okay? She asked, back to him, cracking eggs into a bowl. Martin didn't answer. It's supposed to hit 90 today. Can you believe that? September, and we're still melting. She whisked the eggs, poured them in the pan. I was thinking maybe I'd drive to Tybee, get my feet in the water. You want to come? The eggs sizzled. Toast popped up in the toaster, burnt at the edges, the way it always was when Danielle made it. She'd never learned to adjust the setting. She brought a plate to the table, set it in front of him. Scrambled eggs, dry. Toast, blackened. A paper napkin folded beside it. I made you breakfast, Daddy. She sat down across from him, her own plate in hand, and finally looked at his face. Her eyes caught on his lip, the swelling, the scab, then flicked away fast, too fast. So, and she picked up her fork, set it down, picked it up again. I'm really sorry about last night. Martin watched her, said nothing. Her voice wavered, eyes welling up. I don't know what happened. I was so angry about that job interview falling through, and I drank too much, and I wasn't myself. She reached across the table for his hand. He pulled it back. She blinked, surprised. I said I'm sorry. I heard you. Silence. Danielle's fork scraped against her plate. She pushed eggs around without eating them. You left bruises on my arm, Martin said. His voice was even, flat. Her face flickered. Something cold passed through it, then the tears came back. I know. I'm so sorry. I'll make it up to you, I promise. I just need a little time to get back on my feet. How much time? She looked up, confused. What? How much time do you need? I don't know. A few weeks? A month? She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I've got some leads on jobs. There's that bartending thing in Hilton Head, and the restaurant on Broughton is hiring servers. Martin took a sip of his coffee. Cold now. He set the cup down. You said the same thing 6 months ago. This time is different. You said that too. Danielle's jaw tightened. She blinked hard, swallowed. You don't believe me. I'm listening. No, you're not. You're sitting there judging me like you always do. Martin cut a piece of toast with his fork, took a bite. It tasted like charcoal. He chewed, swallowed, set his fork down. I'm not judging you. I'm just saying, you've told me you'd get a job and move out before. It hasn't happened. 'Cause it's hard, Dad. Do you know how hard it is out there? I'm 34. I don't have a degree. I've got gaps in my resume. I know it's hard. Do you? Her voice rose. You worked at the rail yard for 40 years. Same job, same paycheck. You have no idea what it's like now. Martin picked up his coffee, realized it was empty, set it back down. Danielle leaned forward. Her tears were gone, dried up like they'd never been there. So, I was thinking, if you could lend me $500, I could get that apartment deposit in Pooler. Finally, get out of your hair. There it was, Martin looked at her, really looked, saw the calculation in her eyes, the way she'd tilted her head trying to look vulnerable, the way her voice had shifted from apologetic to businesslike in the span of 2 sentences. "You just apologized for hitting me," he said quietly. "And now you want money." "I'm trying to fix things. Isn't that what you want? Me out of here?" Martin stood, picked up his plate, took it to the sink, scraped the eggs into the trash, ran water over the dish. "I'm not giving you money." Behind him, Danielle's chair scraped back. "Fine. Then I guess I'm stuck here." "Huh?" "Stuck with you and your constant judgment and your sad little routine." "I didn't judge you. I said no." Same thing." Martin turned off the water, kept his back to her, heard her breathing hard behind him, working herself up. "You know what?" Her voice was shaking now. Anger, not tears. "Maybe if Mom were still alive, she'd actually help me, instead of just standing there staring at me like I'm some kind of disappointment." Martin's hands tightened on the edge of the sink. "She'd want you to help me," Danielle said. "She wouldn't just abandon me." He turned around, looked at his daughter standing in the middle of the kitchen, with her arms crossed, chin up, daring him to argue. "Your mother," Martin said slowly, "would have wanted you to be honest, not cruel." And Danielle laughed, sharp, bitter. "There it is. There's the judgment." She grabbed her keys off the counter, shoved her feet into the sneakers by the door. "I'm going out." "Don't wait up!" The front door slammed. Her car engine started, tires spitting gravel as she backed out too fast. The house went silent. Martin stood at the sink for a long time, staring at nothing. Then he pulled the notebook out of the drawer, sat at the table and wrote, September 18th, 9:45 a.m. False apology. Demanded 500. Invoked Claire's memory to manipulate. He stared at Claire's name in his own handwriting. Thought, she wouldn't have wanted this. Not the money. Not the fighting. She wouldn't have wanted Danielle turning into someone who used love as a weapon. He closed the notebook, went out to the porch. The heat hit him like a wall. Humid, thick, pressing down. His shirt stuck to his back before he'd even sat down. The porch swing creaked when he lowered himself onto it, the chains protesting. Across the street, Mrs. Chen was watering her azaleas. She waved. Martin lifted his hand, let it fall. Next door, Evelyn came out on her porch with a watering can. She didn't call over. Just caught his eye, nodded once. He nodded back. A delivery truck rumbled past. The mailman's Jeep turned the corner 2 houses down. Normal Tuesday morning in Savannah. People going about their business. Nobody knew that Martin Porter's daughter had hit him last night. Nobody knew he'd spent the morning documenting it like a crime scene. He pushed the swing with his foot, slow. The chains creaked in rhythm. "I've been protecting Danielle from consequences," he thought. Not protecting her. The words settled in his chest like stones. For 12 years, since Claire died, he'd said yes when he should have said no. Given her money when she needed boundaries. Stayed quiet when he should have spoken. Because he'd promised Claire on her deathbed, "Don't let Danielle feel abandoned." But Claire hadn't meant "let her walk all over you." Had she? Martin tried to remember his wife's exact words. The hospital room, the morphine drip, her hand so thin in his, bones and paper skin. "Promise me you won't let her feel abandoned." But she'd also said something else. Something he'd forgotten until now. "Don't let grief make you weak. She's strong enough to survive this, but only if you're strong enough to let her fall." Martin stopped the swing, sat perfectly still in the suffocating heat. Claire had known. Even dying, she'd known what Danielle might become. What Martin might let her become out of guilt and fear and loneliness. A cardinal landed on the porch railing, bright red against the white paint. It cocked its head, looking at him, then flew off. Martin stood, went back inside, walked to the kitchen windowsill and looked at Claire's glasses, dusty, bent, waiting for 12 years. He didn't pick them up, not yet, but he would. When Danielle came home at midnight, she wasn't alone. Martin was in bed, lights off, fan ticking in the corner. He heard her car pull in, the engine, the doors slamming. 2 doors, then voices, hers and a man's. Both loud, both drunk, laughing about something. The front door banged open. "This is your dad's place?" The man's voice was deep, rough. "Nice." Heavy footsteps in the hallway below Martin's bedroom. "He's probably asleep." Danielle's voice, too loud. "Performing. Old people go to bed at like 8, more laughter." Martin lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling. Heard the refrigerator open, bottles clinking. Music starting, country radio, volume cranked up. The man, "Your old man won't care we're down here?" Danielle, "He doesn't care about anything. Trust me." Martin's jaw clenched, chairs scraping, more laughter. Something glass hitting the floor, not breaking, just rolling. Then footsteps on the stairs. They went into Danielle's room, directly above his. The ceiling creaked. Voices lowered, but still audible through the thin floor. The man said something. Danielle laughed. high, wild, aimed at Martin through the walls. Martin pulled his pillow over his head. He could still hear them. She knew. She knew he could hear every word, every sound. That was the point. This was punishment for saying no, for not giving her money, for daring to set a boundary. He lay there until 3 in the morning, pillow pressed over his ears, and understood with perfect clarity that the apology had been a test, and he'd failed it by refusing to pay. When Danielle came home at midnight, she wasn't alone, and the sound of her laughter, high and wild and aimed at him through the thin walls, told Martin that the apology had been a test, and he'd failed it by saying no. The man's voice was loud enough to rattle the bedroom wall, and Martin lay in this dark, understanding that his daughter had brought home a weapon meant to humiliate him. It was 12:30 in the morning. The oscillating fan ticked in the corner, pushing hot air around the room. Martin had been lying awake since 11, listening to every sound in the house like it was evidence. Danielle's car in the driveway, 2 doors slamming, laughter, hers and someone else's. Now they were in the kitchen, directly below him. "This place is vintage, man," the stranger's voice boomed. Young, maybe 30, drunk. "Your old man own it?" "Technically, we both do." Danielle's voice was too loud, too bright. A lie. The house was Martin's alone, always had been. But yeah, he pays the bills. "Nice setup, free rent." Something like that. The refrigerator opened. Bottles clinked. Country music started on the radio, volume cranked up mid-song. Martin stared at the ceiling. The light fixture in his room trembled slightly with the bass. "He gonna come down here?" the man asked. "Tell us to keep it down?" "Nah, he's too chicken." Goes to bed at like 8, pretends the world doesn't exist. Laughter. Heavy footsteps. The man walking around, exploring. A cabinet opening. "You got any whiskey?" Check the pantry, top shelf. More sounds, glass on wood, liquid pouring. Martin's hands curled into fists on top of the blanket. "Cheers," the man said, "to free rent and absent fathers." Cheers. They drank. The music got louder. Someone turned the bass up until the whole house vibrated with it. Martin heard a chair scrape, then Danielle's voice, closer to the stairs. "Let's go up." "You sure?" "He can't hear anything up here." Dead to the world. Footsteps on the stairs. Right outside Martin's door. He held his breath. They passed. Went into Danielle's room. The door didn't close. He heard it hit the frame, bounce back open. The ceiling creaked, footsteps above him. The stranger's voice, muffled now but still carrying, "Your dad really doesn't care?" "I told you!" "He doesn't care about anything." Martin pulled the pillow over his head. It didn't help. For 2 hours he lay there listening to voices, laughter, the ceiling creaking. Every sound was a message. Every loud word was meant for him to hear. "You can't stop me. You're too weak. This is your house, but I can do whatever I want in it." At 3 a.m., the music finally stopped. The stranger's truck started outside. Diesel engine, loud muffler, pulled away. The house fell quiet. Martin lay awake until dawn, pillow still pressed over his face. At 6 a.m., he got up, went downstairs. The kitchen was a wreck. Empty beer bottles on the counter, 4 of them. Whiskey bottle open, cap missing. Food left out. Bread, lunch meat, mustard jar with the knife still in it. A cigarette had been stubbed out in one of Claire's good saucers, the one with the blue flowers she'd bought in Charleston. The smell of smoke hung in the air. Stale beer. Something else. Cologne. Sweat. Martin opened the window over the sink. Fresh air poured in, but the smell stayed. He cleaned methodically. Bottles into the recycling. Food back in the refrigerator. The saucer, he stared at the black ash mark for a long time. Then washed it, scrubbed it hard, set it in the drainer, wiped down the counters, swept the floor, found a bottle cap under the table. By the time he finished, sunlight was streaming through the window. The kitchen looked normal again, like nothing had happened. But he could still smell cigarettes. At 8 o'clock, he heard movement upstairs. Water running. Danielle in the bathroom. Martin sat at the table with his notebook open in front of him, pen in hand, waited. She came down 15 minutes later, sunglasses on even though she was indoors, hair pulled back in a ponytail, moving slow. She poured coffee, didn't acknowledge the cleaned kitchen, and sat across from him. Martin wrote in his notebook, didn't look up. "What are you writing?" "Notes." "But notes about what?" He finished the sentence. Set the pen down, looked at her. "That man smoked in my house." Danielle shrugged. "So? You gonna ground me?" "You brought a stranger into my home at midnight. You knew I could hear you." "It's my house, too." She took off the sunglasses. Her eyes were bloodshot. "Or did you forget? Mom left it to both of us." Martin kept his voice level. "The deed has my name on it, not yours." Her jaw tightened. "Are you seriously going to pull that card?" "I'm telling you the truth. This house is mine. And I'm telling you," he leaned forward slightly, "no more strangers. That's the line. Danielle laughed, short, sharp, bitter. Or what, you're gonna kick me out? She leaned back, arms crossed. You'd never do that, you need me here. Otherwise, you'd die alone in this house, and we both know it. The words hit like a fist. Martin's pen slipped from his fingers, rolled across the table. He caught it before it fell. Danielle watched him, smiled a little. That's what I thought.
Nate.
She stood, took her coffee, walked past him toward the stairs, stopped in the doorway, turned back. Thanks for cleaning up, by the way. You're real good at that. Cleaning up other people's messes. She went upstairs. Her door closed, not slammed this time, just closed, quiet, final. Martin sat at the table, staring at his notebook. His handwriting was shaking on the last line. He picked up the pen, wrote carefully, September 19th, stranger in home overnight. Cigarettes, Claire's saucer, disrespect deliberate. D claimed house belongs to her, false. Said, you'd die alone without me. He read it back. The words looked small. Didn't capture the size of what she'd done, the calculation in her eyes when she said it. He closed the notebook, put it in the drawer under the old mail where he'd been hiding it, stood, went to the sink, braced his hands on the counter and looked out the window at nothing. The phone rang at 2 in the afternoon. Martin picked up the landline. Hello. Martin. Patricia's voice. Hesitant. I've been thinking about what you said, about Danielle hitting you. He waited. Are you sure you didn't... did something maybe happen that... Didn't what? Tricia? Provoke her? Silence. I just mean, you know how she gets when she's stressed. She's been through so much. She brought a man home last night, Martin said. His voice was flat, empty. A stranger, made sure I heard everything through the walls. Then this morning she told me I'd die alone without her. Silence on the other end of the line. Long enough that Martin thought she'd hung up. Tricia? She said that? Patricia's voice was small now, shocked. Word for word. Oh my God. She's not the person we remember, Martin said quietly. I don't know when she changed, but she did, and I've been pretending she didn't. He heard his sister crying, soft, trying to hide it. When did she become like this? Patricia asked. I think she's been like this for a while. I just didn't want to see it. Martin, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you right away. I should have... You're believing me now. That's what matters. What are you going to do? Martin looked out the kitchen window. Evelyn was on her porch, watering plants. She glanced over, caught his eye. He nodded. She nodded back. I'm going to set a breakfast, he said. Day after tomorrow, Thursday morning, 8 a.m. sharp. I need you here. What kind of breakfast? The kind where people hear the truth, where it gets said out loud in front of witnesses so nobody can pretend it didn't happen. Patricia was quiet for a moment. You're really going to do this? I have to. What do you need me to do? Just be there. Sit at the table. Listen, that's all. I'll be there. Her voice was steadier now. I promise. Thank you, Tricia. He hung up, stood in the kitchen, with his hand still on the phone, listening to the house settle around him. Upstairs, Danielle's music started. Not loud this time, just background noise. She was awake, moving around. Martin pulled the notebook out of the drawer, flipped to a new page. Started making a list. Call Sam, confirm Thursday 8 a.m. Call Evelyn, confirm Thursday 8 a.m. Biscuits, mom's recipe, coffee, set dining room table, 4 places. He stared at the list. It looked like he was planning a normal breakfast. Sunday after church, family gathering. But it wasn't that. It was a courtroom. A reckoning. The end of 12 years of silence. He added one more line, church shirt, ironed. Then closed the notebook and put it back in its hiding place. That night, Martin stood in the backyard at 11 o'clock, looking up at the stars barely visible through the humidity. Danielle's window was open above him. He heard her voice, on the phone, laughing. I know, but he's such a pushover. I could burn the damn house down, and he'd just hand me the matches. Martin's chest tightened. She kept talking. He couldn't hear every word, just fragments, but enough. The old man won't do shit. He's terrified of being alone. I've got him trained, and then quieter, crueler. His precious Claire. She died, knowing he was weak. Martin turned and walked back into the house. Went upstairs, closed his bedroom door, sat on the edge of the bed in the dark, Claire's reading glasses sitting on the windowsill across the room, and realized that tomorrow night he would make biscuits. And the day after that, his daughter would sit at a table and hear the truth spoken out loud for the first time in 12 years. That night, Martin stood in the kitchen doorway at midnight, watching Danielle sleep on the couch with the TV on, and realized that somewhere along the way, love had become a cage he'd built for himself, and it was time to walk out. By the third day after the assault, Martin's silence had become a language Danielle couldn't read, and her confusion was starting to look like fear. Wednesday morning. Martin woke at 5, same as always, but instead of going downstairs for coffee, he went to the attic. The pull-down ladder creaked under his weight. Dust floated in the dim light from the single bulb. Boxes stacked against the rafters. Christmas decorations, old tax files, things neither of them could throw away but didn't need anymore. In the back corner, underneath a stack of winter blankets, he found what he was looking for. The box was labeled in Claire's handwriting, "Personal, Claire." He carried it down to his bedroom, set it on the bed, sat beside it for a minute, just looking at the cardboard and the faded marker, before opening it. Inside, her jewelry box, letters tied with ribbon. Photographs from before they were married. Claire in her 20s, laughing, alive. And at the bottom, a small metal lockbox he'd forgotten existed. Martin lifted it out. Heavy, locked. He tried the combination, their wedding date. 6 numbers, clicking into place. The lock opened. Inside were papers, documents folded neatly. He unfolded them carefully. Claire's handwritten letters to Danielle, sealed in envelopes, to be opened when she's older. Martin had never read them, didn't even know Claire had written them. A copy of Claire's will, the real one, notarized. Martin skimmed it. Everything left to him. Instructions in the margin, Claire's handwriting, help Danielle become strong, not dependent, and at the bottom of the lockbox, a single piece of paper, Claire's handwriting, addressed to him. Martin, don't let grief make you weak. You're the last line. Hold it. She's strong enough to survive this. But only if you're strong enough to let her fall. I love you. Don't forget who you are. See. Martin read it 3 times, then a 4th. His hands weren't shaking anymore. He folded the note carefully, put it in his shirt pocket over his heart, closed the lockbox, put it in his closet next to the notebook, went downstairs and made coffee. Danielle came down at 10:30, later than usual. She moved quietly, not hungover this time, just cautious. Martin was on the porch, phone in his hand. He'd just finished confirming tomorrow morning with Sam Turner. 8 a.m., don't be late. She pushed the screen door open, stood there in pajama shorts and a tank top, watching him. You're up early. Same as always, Martin said. She sat in the other porch chair, the one Claire used to sit in, pulled her knees up, wrapped her arms around them. You've been acting weird. Martin set his phone down. Have I? Yeah, you're never up on the porch this early, and you're always writing in that notebook. And you've been on the phone a lot. I'm allowed to make phone calls. Who were you talking to just now? A friend. She watched him. He could feel her eyes trying to read him, trying to figure out what had changed. Look, she said finally, voice softer now. I know I've been difficult, but I'm going to figure things out. I've got a line on a job, bartending in Hilton Head, real tips, good money. I just need a little more time here. Martin looked at her. How much time? I don't know. A month? 2? And if you don't get the job? Her face flickered. Why are you being like this? Like what? Cold. You're acting like you don't care anymore. Martin picked up his coffee cup, empty, set it back down. Maybe I'm just tired. Of what? He didn't answer. Danielle's jaw tightened. She stood up. Fine, whatever, be like that. She went inside. The screen door slapped shut behind her. Martin sat on the porch for another hour, watching the street. Mrs. Chen drove past on her way to work. The mailman came and went. Evelyn appeared on her porch with her watering can, looked over, raised a hand. He raised his back. Normal Wednesday morning. Except tomorrow, nothing would be normal again. That night, Danielle went out after dinner. Said she was meeting a friend, didn't say who. Didn't ask if Martin minded. He didn't ask questions, just nodded. After she left, he sat at the kitchen table, under the single hanging light, and reviewed everything. His notebook, 3 days of entries, photos on his phone, bruises clear and documented, Claire's note in his pocket. He took it out, read it again. Don't let grief make you weak. You're the last line. Hold it. He'd been weak for 12 years. Tomorrow he'd start being strong. At 9 o'clock, he called Evelyn. It's Martin. I know. What do you need? Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Can you still come? I'll be there. Thank you. He hung up, made one more call. Sam Turner. Martin, everything all right? Fine. Just confirming tomorrow, 8 sharp. I'll be there. You sure about this? Martin looked at the empty chair across from him. Danielle's chair. I'm sure. All right. See you then. Martin hung up. The house was quiet. No music upstairs. No footsteps. Just him and the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the clock above the stove. He went to the pantry, pulled out flour, baking powder, salt. His mother's biscuit recipe, the one Claire had used every Sunday. He hadn't made them since she died. Didn't trust himself to get it right. But tonight, he measured everything carefully. Mixed the dough with his hands, feeling it come together under his palms. Kneaded it, folded it, kneaded again. The rhythm steadied him. He covered the dough with a damp towel, set it in the refrigerator to rest overnight. Tomorrow morning, he'd cut the rounds, bake them in Claire's cast iron skillet, set the table with her good plates. Everything had to look normal. Had to look like a family breakfast. That was the whole point. Danielle came home at 11. Martin was still in the kitchen, wiping down the counters. She stopped in the doorway when she saw him. "You're up late." Couldn't sleep. She got a glass of water from the sink. Stood there drinking it, watching him. "You're really freaking me out." Martin rinsed the dishcloth, wrung it out, draped it over the faucet. "Am I?" "Yes. You're acting like, I don't know, like something's about to happen." "Something is." She set the glass down too hard. Water sloshed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "I'm making breakfast tomorrow, 8 a.m. sharp." "Okay." "I invited some people over." Danielle's face went still. "What people?" "People who care about the truth." What the hell is that supposed to mean?" Martin turned to face her. Looked at her directly, didn't flinch, didn't look away. "You'll find out tomorrow. Get some sleep." He walked past her, headed for the stairs. "Dad?" Her voice stopped him. He turned. She was standing in the middle of the kitchen, arms wrapped around herself. "What are you doing?" "What I should have done a long time ago." "Which is what?" "Telling the truth." He went upstairs, heard her behind him. "Dad? Dad, what are you talking about?" He closed his bedroom door, locked it. Stood there in the dark, listening. After a minute, her footsteps on the stairs, slow, hesitant. She went to her room. The door didn't close right away. He heard her standing in the hallway, maybe looking at his door, thinking. Then her door closed, softly. Martin sat on the edge of his bed, pulled Claire's note from his pocket, unfolded it one more time in the darkness. "You're the last line. Hold it." "I'm holding it," he whispered to the empty room. "I promise." At 2 in the morning, Martin heard it. Footsteps above his head, back and forth, back and forth. Danielle was pacing. He lay in bed, eyes open, listening to her walk the length of her room and back. Over and over, the floorboards creaking with each step. She couldn't sleep. For the first time in 12 years, she was the one lying awake. The one wondering what morning would bring. The one afraid. Martin closed his eyes. For the first time since the night she hit him, he slept. Danielle didn't sleep that night. Martin could hear her pacing in the room above his, and he realized with grim satisfaction that for the first time in 12 years, she was the one lying awake, wondering what morning would bring. At 2 in the morning, Martin stood in the backyard and heard his daughter destroy him through an open window, and he understood that some betrayals are so complete they can never be undone. He hadn't meant to go outside, had been lying in bed, unable to sleep despite his earlier confidence. The house was too quiet. His mind kept running through tomorrow, what he'd say, how it would go, whether he had the strength to see it through. At 1:30, he gave up on sleep, went downstairs for water, stood at the kitchen sink drinking from the tap when he heard Danielle's voice from the backyard. He looked out the window. Her bedroom light was on, window cracked open. She was on the phone, pacing. He could see her shadow moving back and forth. Martin pushed open the back door, stepped onto the porch, not to eavesdrop, just for air. The September night was cooler now, almost comfortable. Crickets screaming in the overgrown azaleas. Then he heard her laugh, high, sharp, cruel. I know, but he's such a pushover." Martin froze. Her voice carried clear through the open window above him. She must have been standing right next to it. "I could burn the damn house down, and he'd just hand me the matches." His chest tightened. Girl, I'm serious. The old man won't do shit. He never does. You know why?" Pause. She was listening to whoever was on the other end. "Because he's terrified of being alone. That's it. That's the whole thing. He'd rather let me walk all over him than risk me leaving." Martin's legs stopped working. He sat down hard on the top porch step. Danielle kept talking. Her voice was different now. Not performing, not trying to seem vulnerable. This was her real voice. The one she used when she thought no one who mattered was listening. "I pushed him down 2 days ago, slapped him, left bruises, and you know what he did? Nothing. Cleaned the kitchen the next morning like it never happened." She laughed again. "Right? It's pathetic. His precious Claire. God, if she could see him now, she'd be disgusted." Martin's hands started shaking. "No, I'm not being mean, I'm being honest. She died knowing he was weak. I remember her last few weeks. She tried to tell him to be stronger, stop being such a doormat, and he just didn't get it. Probably still doesn't. The words hit like fists, one after another, relentless. And now he's doing this weird breakfast thing tomorrow morning. Probably gonna sit me down, give me some speech about respect and boundaries and therapy. I'll cry, he'll fold, same as always. I've got him trained." Trained. like a dog. Okay, yeah, I should go. Yeah, love you too. Bye. The window closed. Her light went off. Martin sat on the porch step, staring at nothing. The crickets were too loud. The air was too thick. His heart was beating wrong. Too fast, then too slow, like it couldn't decide whether to keep going. She'd said Claire would be disgusted. Said Claire died knowing he was weak. He tried to breathe, but the air wouldn't go in right. 12 years. 12 years of trying to honor his wife's memory by protecting their daughter. 12 years of patience and silence and sacrifice. And Danielle thought Claire would be disgusted by him. Maybe she was right. Maybe Claire had been watching from wherever she was, watching him enable and excuse and surrender, and maybe she was disgusted. Martin put his head in his hands. The worst part, the part that made his chest feel like it was splitting open, was that he couldn't even argue, couldn't even say Danielle was wrong, because she wasn't. He had been weak. He had let her walk all over him. He had trained himself to accept the unacceptable, because being alone scared him more than being destroyed. And now she was upstairs sleeping peacefully, confident that tomorrow would be like every other day, that he'd talk, she'd cry, he'd forgive, the cycle would continue. He'd been so sure of himself after finding Claire's note, so certain he was ready. But that was before hearing her voice. Casual, contemptuous, laughing, reducing his entire life to a joke. Martin stood. His legs were unsteady, but they held. He went inside, locked the back door, walked through the dark house like a stranger. In his bedroom, he turned on the small lamp by the bed, pulled Claire's note from his pocket, the one he'd been carrying like armor, and read it again. Don't let grief make you weak. You're the last line. Hold it. His hands shook so hard the paper rattled. She'd known. Claire had known this would happen, known he'd be tested, known he might fail. You're the last line. The last line. He'd read those words yesterday and felt strong. Tonight, they felt like an accusation. He folded the note carefully, set it on the nightstand, stood there in the lamplight, feeling like the walls were pressing in. Then he looked at this kitchen windowsill through his open bedroom door, at Claire's reading glasses sitting where they'd been for 12 years. He walked downstairs in his bare feet. The house creaked around him. Stood at the sink, staring at the glasses, dust thick on the frames. One arm slightly bent where Claire had always laid them down crooked. She'd worn them every evening, reading mystery novels in the armchair by the lamp, crossword puzzles at the kitchen table, birthday cards from relatives she'd put on her glasses to read the small handwriting, then set them here on the windowsill while she made tea. Martin reached out. His hand hovered over them for a long moment. Then he picked them up. The dust came off on his fingers. The frames were lighter than he remembered. The lenses clouded. He held them up to the light. Saw the world through the prescription she'd needed. Everything blurred, distorted. That's what he'd been doing. Looking at the world through her grief instead of her wisdom. Blurring what she'd actually said, distorting it into permission to be weak. He set the glasses on the counter, got a clean cloth from the drawer, wiped them carefully. Frames first, then lenses until they were clear again, held them up. Through the clean lenses, everything was sharp, too sharp. He remembered something else now. Something from Claire's final week that he'd buried. She'd been in the hospital bed at home. Hospice nurse had just left. Danielle was 17, downstairs, angry at the world, refusing to come up. Claire had taken his hand, so thin, bones and paper skin, and said, "Promise me you won't let her feel abandoned." He'd nodded through tears. "I promise." But she hadn't stopped there. She'd squeezed his hand hard, harder than should have been possible for someone that close to death. "But Martin," her voice was fierce, urgent, "don't confuse being there with being weak. She's strong enough to survive losing me. She's strong enough to survive you saying no. If you let her walk all over you, you're not saving her. You're killing who she could be." He'd nodded. But he hadn't understood, not really. And then a day later, when she was barely conscious anymore, she'd pulled him close and whispered, "Don't let grief make you weak. You're the last line. Hold it." Those were her last words to him. Not let Danielle do whatever she wants. Not never tell her no. Not sacrifice yourself so she feels loved. Hold the line. Martin set the glasses down on the counter, braced his hands on the sink, and looked out at the dark backyard. She'd been telling him to be strong, to set boundaries, to love Danielle enough to let her face consequences, and he'd done the opposite. He'd heard, "Don't let her feel abandoned," and translated it to, "Let her destroy you." He'd turned Claire's dying wish into permission to betray himself. The grief he'd been carrying for 12 years cracked open. Not the grief of losing Claire. That was old, familiar, almost comfortable now. This was new grief. The grief of realizing he'd failed her, that he'd taken the gift of her wisdom and buried it, that he'd let their daughter become someone Claire wouldn't recognize because he'd been too afraid and too tired and too lonely to do the hard thing. Martin picked up the glasses again, folded them carefully, put them in his shirt pocket, over his heart, where Claire's note had been. He would carry her with him tomorrow. Not the imaginary version he'd been talking to for 12 years. The soft, forgiving ghost who excused everything. The real Claire, the one who told him to hold the line. At 4 in the morning, Martin began preparing. He pulled the biscuit dough from the refrigerator, let it warm slightly while he heated the oven, got out Claire's cast iron skillet, the big one, the one she'd used for Sunday breakfast, rolled the dough on the counter, floured surface, rolling pin moving in steady rhythm, cut rounds with the mouth of a water glass, arranged them in the skillet, edges just touching, slid them into the oven. While they baked, he set the dining room table. The good table, the one they only use for holidays. 4 place settings, Claire's china plates, white with blue edges, cloth napkins, 4 water glasses, 4 coffee cups, everything precise, everything right. At 5:30, the biscuits came out, golden, perfect. The smell filled the house, home, safety. Sunday mornings when the world made sense. Martin set the skillet on the table, hot pad underneath. Brewed coffee in the stovetop percolator, poured 4 cups, left them on the counter to stay warm. At 6 o'clock, he showered, shaved carefully, put on his church shirt, the blue one pressed and hanging in the closet, church pants, church shoes, looked at himself in the mirror. He looked old. Gray stubble he'd missed by his ear. The bruise on his jaw had faded to yellow-brown. His eyes were red from no sleep, but he looked solid, determined. He touched the glasses in his pocket, felt their weight, hold the line. "I'm holding it," he said to his reflection. "This time I'm holding it." At 7:45, Martin sat at the head of the dining room table. The biscuits were cooling. Coffee was ready. The morning light came through the east windows, bright and clean. Upstairs, he heard movement, Danielle's feet hitting the floor, the bathroom door closing. She'd woken up on her own, no alarm. Some instinct telling her today was different. Martin's hands were steady on the table. He heard water running, the shower. She was taking her time. At 7:55, the doorbell rang. The first witness arriving, Martin stood, smoothed his shirt, touched the glasses in his pocket one more time. Then he walked to the door and opened it. At 7:55 a.m., and the doorbell rang, the first witness arriving, and Martin heard Danielle's feet hit the floor above him, confused and unready, exactly as he'd planned. The witnesses arrived like a jury, one by one, and Danielle came downstairs in her bathrobe to find her father sitting at the head of a table that looked like judgment. Martin opened the door at 7:55. Evelyn Brooks stood on the porch in a navy blazer and slacks, her gray hair pulled back, reading glasses hanging on a chain around her neck. She carried a leather portfolio under one arm. She looked like what she was, a retired judge stepping back into her courtroom. "Morning, Martin." Morning, Evelyn. Thank you for coming." She squeezed his shoulder as she passed, went straight to the dining room, surveyed the table, 4 settings, biscuits in the cast iron skillet, coffee cups waiting, and chose the seat to Martin's left, set her portfolio on the table, folded her hands on top of it, ready. Martin heard movement upstairs, Danielle's feet hitting the floor, the bathroom door opening. At 8:02, a knock on the door, firm, official. Martin opened it. Detective Samuel Turner stood in full uniform, badge, gun belt, notebook in hand. He'd shaved, pressed his uniform, showed up like this was a crime scene, because it was. "Martin." Turner shook his hand. His grip was solid. "You doing okay?" "I will be," Turner nodded. Came inside, boots heavy on the hardwood, stopped when he saw the dining room, the formal table, Evelyn already seated, the 4 place settings. "Where do you want me?" "Next to Evelyn." Turner sat, opened his notebook to a fresh page, set his pen beside it, looked at Martin and nodded once. Upstairs, the shower started. Danielle didn't know yet. At 8:08, tires on gravel, a car door closing. Martin opened the door before Patricia could knock. His sister stood on the porch in a simple dress, purse clutched to her chest. Her eyes were red. She'd been crying on the drive up from Charleston. When she saw Martin's face, she started crying again. "I'm so sorry." Her voice broke. "I should have believed you right away. I should have—" "You're here now." Martin pulled her into a hug. Brief. "That's what matters." She nodded against his shoulder, then pulled back, wiped her eyes. "What do you need me to do?" "Just sit. Listen. Be my sister." Patricia went inside, stopped when she saw the formal table, Evelyn's judicial bearing, Turner's uniform. Her hand went to her mouth. "Oh, God, this is really happening." "It has to," Martin said quietly. She nodded, took the seat to Martin's right, across from Evelyn, set her purse in her lap. Her hands were shaking. Martin went to the kitchen, poured 4 cups of coffee, brought them to the table on a tray, set them down, one at each place, steam rising. The shower stopped upstairs. Martin sat at the head of the table, Claire's glasses in his pocket. Pressing against his heart, he touched them through his shirt, felt their weight. Evelyn caught the gesture. "Is that—" "Claire's. I picked them up this morning." Evelyn's face softened. She understood. "She'd be proud of you." I hope so. They waited. The house was silent except for the clock ticking in the kitchen and the sound of Danielle moving around. Upstairs, drawers opening, closet sliding. She was getting dressed. Martin's hands were flat on the table. Steady. Patricia kept glancing at him, then at the stairs, then back. Nervous energy radiating off her. Turner sat perfectly still, cop still, notebook ready. Evelyn had her judge face on, neutral, attentive, missing nothing. At 8:17, Danielle's bedroom door opened. Footsteps in the hallway, slower than usual, cautious. She appeared at the top of the stairs in her bathrobe, hair wet from the shower, and froze. 4 people sitting at the dining room table. All dressed formally, all watching her. What's going on? Martin's voice was calm. Come down, please. We're having breakfast. Who are all these people? Evelyn, Detective Turner, your Aunt Patricia. Danielle's eyes went wide when she registered Turner's uniform. The badge, the gun. Why is there a cop in our house? Turner's voice was even, professional. Morning, Danielle. Your father asked me to be here. Danielle looked between them. Martin, the witnesses, the formal table. Her face went pale. Dad, what is this? It's breakfast. Sit down. I'm not dressed. You're dressed enough. Come down. She descended 3 steps, stopped. Am I being arrested? That depends, Turner said. On what? Martin met her eyes. On whether you listen. Danielle stood frozen on the stairs. Martin could see her brain working, calculating, trying to find the angle, the way out. But there wasn't one. 4 people, 4 witnesses, one at a exit blocked by their... She came down the rest of the way, slowly. Every step looked like it cost her something. Walked to the table, looked at the 4 place settings. Her seat, the one facing Martin, was directly across from him, Patricia to her right, Evelyn and Turner to her left. She pulled out the chair, sat, her hands were shaking. Martin placed both hands flat on the table. Thank you all for being here. He looked at each person in turn. Evelyn, steady and judicial. Turner, ready with his pen. Patricia, crying quietly but holding herself together. Then he looked at his daughter. Danielle, I asked these people to come because I need witnesses. I need people who will hear what I say and remember it. Because for 12 years I've been silent. And silence has cost me everything. Danielle's voice came out small. Daddy, please. No. Martin's voice was gentle, but immovable. No more pleas, no more apologies followed by demands, no more lies about what happened or who you are. Today, we tell the truth. Turner clicked his pen. For the record, today is Thursday, September 20th. 8:20 a.m. Present are Martin Porter, his daughter Danielle Porter, his sister Patricia Porter, retired Judge Evelyn Brooks, and myself, Detective Samuel Turner of the Savannah Police Department. He looked at Danielle. Your father called me 3 days ago. Told me you assaulted him on the night of September 17th. He documented his injuries with photographs and written account. He flipped open his notebook. Is that accurate, Danielle? Did you strike your father on September 17th? Danielle's face crumpled. I didn't mean... Evelyn leaned forward. Her voice was cold, precise. The voice she'd used in courtrooms for 30 years. Did you strike him or not? I was drunk. I was angry. It was an accident. Assault isn't an accident. Turner's pen was poised over his notebook. Did you push him to the ground? Danielle looked at Martin, eyes pleading. Daddy, please stop this. Answer the question. Martin's voice was quiet. Final. Danielle's shoulders shook. Yes, but I didn't mean to hurt him. I was just so angry. You're 34 years old, Evelyn said. You put your hands on a 68-year-old man. Intent is irrelevant. Patricia spoke for the first time, her voice breaking. Danielle, how could you? Danielle turned to her aunt. You don't understand. He was judging me, telling me I had to move out, treating me like I was some kind of failure. He told you to find your own place, Turner said, reading from his notes. That's not abuse, that's parenting. I'm not a child. Then stop acting like one. Evelyn's voice cut through the room like a gavel. Silence. Martin reached for the cast iron skillet in the center of the table, pulled it toward him. The biscuits were still warm, golden, perfect. Claire's skillet. Sunday breakfast. Home. He set it down in front of Danielle. I made these at 4 this morning, he said quietly. Used my mother's recipe, the one your mother used every Sunday. Do you remember? Danielle was crying now. Dad? Do you remember Sunday mornings, when you were little, when we were a family? She nodded, unable to speak. I do too. Martin's hands were steady on the table. I remember a lot of things. And now I'm going to tell these people what kind of person my daughter has become. And when I'm done, you're going to have a choice to make. And Martin picked up the cast iron skillet, set it in the center of the table, the biscuit still warm, and said the words he'd been rehearsing since 2 a.m. Well, now I'm going to tell you what kind of person my daughter has become. And when I'm done, she's going to have a choice to make. Martin Porter spoke for 11 minutes without raising his voice, and by the time he finished, Danielle understood that silence hadn't been weakness. It had been a mercy she'd mistaken for permission. Danielle moved back in 2 years ago after losing her job. I said yes because she's my daughter, and I thought she needed time to get back on her feet. Martin's hands were flat on the table. His voice was steady, conversational almost. Time didn't help. She drank more, blamed me more. Every conversation became about what I owed her, what I'd failed to give her, how I wasn't the father she deserved. Danielle stared at her hands, didn't look up. September 17th, 11:40 p.m., she came home drunk. I was waiting in the kitchen. Told her she needed to start looking for her own place. She was 34 years old. It was time. He pulled out his notebook, set it on the table, opened it. She pushed me, hard. I went down, hit the floor. Then she slapped my face, told me. He read from the page. You don't tell me what to do anymore, old man. Patricia made a small sound, covered her mouth. I took pictures the next morning. 4 finger marks on my left arm where she grabbed me, split lip, bruise on my jaw. Martin looked at Turner. You have copies. Turner nodded. In my file. As Martin turned the page. September 18th. She came down that morning, made breakfast, apologized, cried, said she didn't know what happened, that she'd been drinking, that it wouldn't happen again. Danielle's shoulders were shaking, silent tears running down her face. Then she asked me for $500, said she needed it for an apartment deposit in Pooler. When I said no, her face changed. The tears stopped. Just like that, he snapped his fingers. She told me if I wouldn't help her, she was stuck here with me in my constant judgment. Evelyn leaned forward, listening. That night, September 18th, around midnight, she brought a man home, a stranger. Made sure I heard them. The music loud enough to shake the walls, their voices carrying through the floor. He smoked cigarettes in my kitchen, used my late wife's good dishes as an ashtray. Patricia was crying openly now. The next morning I told her no more strangers in my house. She laughed. Martin's voice stayed level. She said, and I quote, "Or what? You gonna kick me out? You'd never do that. You need me here. Otherwise you'd die alone in this house. And we both know it." Danielle flinched like she'd been hit. She was right about one thing, Martin said quietly. I have been afraid of dying alone. After Claire died, that fear was bigger than anything else, bigger than my dignity, bigger than my self-respect. So I let my daughter treat me like I didn't matter because I thought being alone was worse than being destroyed. He looked at Danielle. She still wouldn't meet his eyes. Last night, I was outside, couldn't sleep, her window was open. She was on the phone with someone, laughing. Martin's voice cracked slightly. First time. He cleared his throat. She said I was a pushover. Said she could burn my house down and I'd hand her the matches. Said the old man wouldn't do anything because I was terrified of being alone, that she had me trained. And Danielle's head came up. Her face went white. Then she said, Martin had to stop, breathe, touch the glasses in his pocket for strength. She said her mother would be disgusted by me. That Claire died knowing I was weak, that she was just proving it. The room went silent. Even the clock stopped ticking. Patricia pushed back from the table, hand over her mouth, and walked to the window. Stood there with her back to them, shoulders shaking. Evelyn's face had gone cold as stone. Turner set his pen down. Jesus Christ. Martin closed the notebook, set it aside, looked at his daughter. You want to know the worst part? You were right. I have been weak. I let you treat me like garbage because I was so terrified of being alone that I'd rather be destroyed than abandoned. But last night, I realized something. He leaned forward. I already lost you. You've been gone for years. The daughter I raised. The one who used to bring me flowers from the yard. The one who helped her mother make Sunday breakfast in this skillet. She's gone. And I've been feeding a ghost who hates me. Danielle sobbed. Daddy? No. Martin's voice was gentle but final. I'm done. Not because I don't love you, because I do. But I can't save you from yourself. And trying to is killing us both. Turner opened his notebook again. Danielle, elder abuse is a crime in Georgia. I have photographs, written testimony, and 3 witnesses. I can file charges today if your father wants me to. Danielle looked at Martin, eyes desperate. Daddy, no. Please. I don't want you in jail, Martin said, but I can't let you stay here anymore. That part's over. Evelyn pulled a business card from her portfolio, set it on the table in front of Danielle. There's a residential treatment facility in Charleston, 30 days inpatient. Substance abuse and anger management. Your aunt can help you get there. Patricia turned from the window, wiping her eyes, nodded. You go willingly, complete the program, and this doesn't become a criminal case. Evelyn's voice was ice. You refuse. Detective Turner files charges this afternoon. Danielle's voice came out strangled. You can't make me. No, Turner said. But the alternative is arrest and prosecution. Elder abuse. Class D felony, up to 5 years. He looked at her steadily. Your choice. Danielle looked around the table. Everyone was watching her. No one was crying for her. No one was making excuses. She looked at Martin. I'm your daughter. I know. Martin's voice was quiet. Sad. That's why I'm giving you a choice, instead of just calling the police the night it happened. That's why these people are here, instead of handcuffs. Because you're my daughter, and I still love you enough to give you a chance I don't think you deserve. Danielle's face crumpled. You're really gonna do this? I already did it. Now you have to decide what happens next. Silence. Then Danielle stood. The chair scraped back. Fine. I'll go to your fucking rehab, but don't expect... Her voice broke. Don't expect me to thank you. I don't, Martin said. She turned and ran upstairs. They heard her door slam. Drawers opening. Things being thrown into a bag. Patricia stood. I'll drive her to Charleston. We'll call the facility on the way. Thank you, Tricia. She came around the table, put her hand on Martin's shoulder. I'm sorry I didn't believe you sooner. You believed me when it mattered. She might not ever forgive you. I know. Patricia nodded, went to the stairs, waited. 20 minutes later, Danielle came down. Duffel bag over her shoulder, eyes red. She wouldn't look at Martin. Patricia reached for the bag. Come on, honey, let's go. Danielle stopped at the door, turned back. Looked at her father sitting at the head of the table with the biscuits and coffee and witnesses. I hate you. Martin met her eyes. I know. Her face did something. Crumpled, hardened, broke. Then she turned and walked out. The door closed. Car doors slammed. Engine started. Tires on gravel, fading, gone. Turner closed his notebook, stood. You did the right thing, Martin. Did I? Yes. Turner's voice was firm. I watched my father get abused by my siblings, and I didn't do anything. You did. That took guts. He put on his hat. If she doesn't complete the program, you call me. We'll file charges. All right. Turner shook his hand, left. Evelyn packed up her portfolio, came around the table, put both hands on Martin's shoulders. Claire would be proud of you. I hope so. I know so. She squeezed gently. Call me if you need anything. I'm right next door. Thank you, Evelyn. She left. The house fell silent. Martin sat at the head of the table, alone. 4 place settings. 4 coffee cups, barely touched. The cast iron skillet in the center with golden biscuits no one had eaten. He stared at Danielle's empty chair, thought, I won. It didn't feel like winning. He picked up his coffee cup. Cold, drank it anyway, set it down, picked up a biscuit, bit into it. It was perfect, flaky, buttery, exactly like Claire used to make. Like Sunday mornings when they were a family. He ate it slowly. Alone in the dining room with the morning light streaming through the windows. When he finished, he cleared the table, put the dishes in the sink, wrapped the remaining biscuits in foil, put them in the refrigerator, stood at the sink, looking out at the backyard. The azaleas needed trimming. The porch swing was hanging crooked on one chain, things he'd let go for too long. He touched the glasses in his pocket. Claire's glasses, clean now, clear, whispered, I held the line. The house settled around him, quiet, empty, his. Martin sat at the head of the table, staring at the 4 plates, the cooling biscuits, the coffee no one had drunk, and realized that winning had never felt so much like losing. 3 weeks later, Martin Porter sat on his porch at sunset and understood that peace doesn't feel like happiness. It feels like the quiet after a storm, when you're still standing but everything looks different. October had come while he wasn't paying attention. The air was cooler now, almost comfortable. The azaleas needed trimming. He'd get to them tomorrow, maybe. He woke at 5:30 still, same as always. Made coffee in the stovetop percolator. Sat at the kitchen table with the newspaper and actually read it this time. City council meeting. High school football scores. Somebody's golden retriever found safe after 3 days missing. Normal things. Small things. Things that didn't hurt. At 7, Evelyn came over with muffins. Blueberry, still warm. They sat on the porch and talked about nothing important. Mrs. Chen's new car, the weather turning, whether the Braves had any chance next season. Martin realized, halfway through his coffee, that this was the first conversation he'd had in months that didn't leave him exhausted. "You doing okay?" Evelyn asked. Not prying, just checking. "I am," she nodded. Finished her coffee, took her mug inside to rinse it, came back out, squeezed his shoulder. "Good." After she left, Martin went inside and called Patricia. "Hey." His sister's voice was tired. "I was going to call you today." "How is she?" "She's—" Patricia paused. She completed intake. "She's going to group therapy, doing the program. But Martin, she's still angry." "I know. She hasn't asked about you, not once." Martin looked out the kitchen window, watched a cardinal land on the porch railing. "Okay. That's it? Just okay? What else is there to say?" Patricia was quiet for a moment. "I keep thinking she'll come around, that she'll realize what you did was—" "She might not, Tricia. And that's all right." "How is that all right?" "Because I didn't do it for her gratitude. I did it because it was right." He touched the glasses in his pocket. He'd been carrying them every day. "She's alive. She's getting help. That's enough." "I wish." "I know. Me too." They said goodbye. Martin hung up, stood in his quiet kitchen, and felt nothing break open, nothing collapse, just the hum of the refrigerator and the tick of the clock, and the house settling around him. His house. His kitchen, his quiet. He made eggs in Claire's cast iron skillet, ate them at the table by himself, washed the dishes, put them away. That afternoon, Martin drove to the cemetery. He hadn't been since the day after the breakfast. Hadn't been ready. Wasn't sure he was ready now, but his truck seemed to drive itself there anyway. Claire's grave was in the old section, under a live oak. The headstone was simple. Her name, her dates, and the line she'd wanted. She loved well. Martin stood there for a while, just looking. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out her reading glasses, held them in the sunlight. The lenses were clean now, clear. He could see through them to the grass beyond, every blade in focus. "I did what you asked," he said quietly. No one else around. Just him and the stone in the October afternoon. "Took me 12 years to understand what you meant, but I did it. I let her fall." A breeze moved through the oak branches. "I don't know if she'll get back up, but I'm still standing. That has to count for something." He knelt down, placed the glasses at the base of the headstone. Let them go. Stood, looked at them there. Small, bent, finally at rest. "Thank you," he whispered, "for seeing it before I did." He walked back to his truck, drove home. The glasses stayed where he'd left them. Evening. Martin sat on the porch swing, watching the sun drop toward the horizon. The chains creaked with his weight. That foghorn sounded from the river, low, long, familiar. He thought about Danielle in Charleston, sitting in a circle, maybe, talking about her father to a room full of strangers, painting him as the villain of her story. Maybe that's what she needed. Maybe that's how she'd survive it. He'd been the villain in his own story for 12 years. The weak man, the doormat, the coward who let grief make him small. But he wasn't that anymore. The swing creaked. The cardinal came back, perched on the railing, looked at him with its black eye, flew away. Martin went inside as the last light faded, made tea, sat at the kitchen table with a book. Mystery novel he'd bought at the used bookstore on Broughton. First book he'd read for pleasure in years. The house was quiet around him. Not the suffocating quiet of someone waiting for the next explosion. Just quiet, the good kind. The kind that doesn't demand anything. He thought, being alone isn't the same as being lonely. He'd been lonely for 12 years with his daughter in the house. Now he was alone. And it felt like breathing. The clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, the porch swing creaked in the breeze. Martin turned the page and kept reading. The house settled around him in the dark. And for the first time, in 12 years, Martin Porter slept through the night without waking.